So far, we have focused mainly on the home page of this application, where we loop through the movie objects and we display the poster image for each of those movie objects. We also set up some partial files to help clean up our code a little bit, and we have the basic bare bones of our movie single route. On movie single page, we're going to do a lot of things. First, we're going to get the movie poster image for that movie and display that. We also are going to get the description of the movie, its title, and we're going to look through the array of main characters. And we're also going to get the hero image property, and we're going to display the hero image as a background, sort of like how we have up here, but it will be custom to each of the movie single objects. We're also going to make sure a user can click on a poster on the home page and be taken to that respective movie single page, and the same goes for the navigation right here, because right now it's not hooked up to anything. So we need to take care of that as well. Also, one other thing I noticed in the first part is the top of the Sublime text thing is a little cut off. So I really apologize for that. The recording software I have is weak sauce. So I'm just going to keep minimizing it and opening it so you guys can actually see the tabs. You guys could see them to the left, but that's tedious and you guys shouldn't have to do that. So that is my fault. But the first thing we're going to do is, instead of creating a separate HTML file for each of the movie's individual pages, we're going to have 6, something you'd have to do in a static, a website. We will be creating a template file for the movie single pages. This is very similar to what we did for the home.ejs template file, but we'll call this new one movie single ejs. So within views, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to save it as movie_single.ejs. This file will provide the structure for each of the movie's pages. To get this up and running really quick, I'm going to take the code in the home here, copy that, and paste that in. So we have the partials still being included. We have the header being included, which is good. And now what we need to do is we're going to get rid of this posters wrapper because we don't need that. We got the scripts being included as well. And we're also going to change this to be hero image single, because this is going to have a little bit different styling than the hero image, just plain one we had on the home page. Now you may notice that we're not actually rendering this page anywhere, and that's what we need to do right now. So remember, to render a template, we're going to go into our routes index.js file, and inside here we're going to get rid of response.send, and we're going to do response.render, and in here we're going to do the movie single template. So when we visit the /Star Wars, so for example, I don't have the server running, but like /Star Wars episode 1 or /Star Wars episode 3, we will render that movie single template. And one thing, just to be clear, in the index.js file for our movie single route, and we did the same thing in the home route, the name of the template file does not need to be the same as the route. I just do that because it's more descriptive. But they could really be named different things, so that's up to you. I figured I would just say that. And just like our home route, in the movie single route, we're also going to render a series of we're going to pass in a series of object literals that we're going to use. For example, we're including the header partial file, and the header partial, if you remember, actually makes use of, let me fix this. It makes use of the movies variable, which we don't actually have in here. We're not passing it in. So we're just going to copy this in the home route, and we're going to create a little bit of space here because I love white space, and we're going to paste that in. So var movies is now the array of movies in the movies JSON file. So remember, it's going to be each of these objects, but it's going to be the array of those objects. Okay, so we can get rid of the header now. Just know that we have movies in the header. So we need to pass in movies, and it's going to get movies. Okay, so let's actually go back to our movie single partial file now. And let's just write down here. Actually, let's do it as the title, because right now we're not passing in a title, but just to show that the template is being rendered. Let's do, this is the movie single page. Actually, let's say this is the movie single template. And I might keep switching back into something that doesn't exist because I'm used to having that as a separate desktop tab. So now I'll just run node app.js. And it's running. So we refresh here. And this is back to the home page. And let's do Star Wars / episode 1. And we're going to get title is not defined because we also have that in the head. And remember, we're not passing in title yet into our Sublime text or Sublime text. We're not passing it into our movie single route yet. So if we go up into head, here's title. What we're going to do quick is just get rid of that. You can leave that on, leave it in, and just watch me do this to save yourself some time. So again, we'll refresh and we'll re-go here. And there we go. This is the movie single template, and it's being rendered for each of the routes corresponding to the movie single route. So again, it works like that. This is the movie single template. It is working, and we're still, thankfully, because we passed in the movies variable, it's accessible now in this template, so we can use that in our header to loop through. Okay, so I put the title variable back into the head partial file. So now we need to actually pass in title into our movie single route so we can access that. We're passing in movies, which is good because we're accessing that in the header partial file, but now we need to get the other ones we're going to use. This next section may be a little tricky to understand initially. However, I'm going to do everything I can to explain this the best that I can because it was really tricky for me when I was going through it the first time. If you remember, in the first part, we stored the number at the end of the URL. So right here, var episode number gets request, because it's part of the request, params.episode number. And this corresponds to /Star Wars episode / episode number ? This right here is available in the params object on the request object. So request.params.episode number is the number at the end of the URL. For example, 6 here. So again, if a user visits /Star Wars episode /2, 2 will be stored in the variable episode number, which we did right here. This is very important because we need the variables for each movie to be with respect to the movie whose episode number is in the URL. For example, when we are displaying the title for each movie, we need to get the title for that movie that corresponds to the episode number variable in the URL. Now that might be a little confusing to understand, but like since we have one template file, unlike home where it was one template file for one page, this is one template file for 6 different ones. So we can't just pass in a hard-coded version of title. It needs to take on the title that's with respect to the movie whose episode number is up here. Now, it's going to make a lot more sense once I go through and do this, but one more way I can say this is because the route represents more than one page, we have to pass in a variable that's with respect to the movie that corresponds to the episode number parameter in the request URL. Okay, so back in the movie single route, we have episode number and we have movies. And we're passing in movies because that's required in the header partial file. So the next thing we want to do is we want to get each instance of movie within this route by somehow using the episode number parameter. We need to do this dynamically so we don't copy ourselves continuously and keep repeating ourselves. We can do this by writing and storing about a variable called movie. So what I'm going to do is write a variable called movie, and this is going to get the movies array, but it's going to get the one at the index that is related to the episode number -1. Because arrays are 0 based and the movie numbers are not, so for example, episode number here is 1, but this is actually position 0 in the array. Now we can use this movie variable to get the title for that movie and other values that we need, because movie now represents, for example, we visit here, the only movie represents the object that is episode 6. So we visit Star Wars episode 6, it corresponds to this object right here. So good. I hope you guys are following me. I know it's a little tricky, so I hope I'm doing a good job of putting this across to you. Like I was saying, we can use this movie variable to get the title. So we're going to do var title gets movie.title. And now we can just pass in title as title. Now we're going to be accessing this variable, even though they're the same name. If they were different, this is what we'd be using. So now in head and in our template file here, we can output title instead of what we hard coded. Title. If I could spell, that'd be the greatest thing ever. And I keep doing that, I'm sorry. All right, so we do node app.js. And let's refresh. And now we see Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And up here, it also says Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So we don't have that hooked up yet. So we visit 1, Star Wars Episode 1, Episode 2, Star Wars Episode 2, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Awesome. They're all working, and this is good. Just to beat the dead horse a little bit more, I'm going to go over it one more time, sort of like what's going on here. So in the movie single route, we are getting the movie that is with respect to the episode number -1 because the movie's array is 0 based. So this right here, Star Wars Episode /3, is getting the second object in the array, well, the one in the second place. So it's getting this one right here because 0, 1, 2. So it's getting this object, and we're representing this in the variable movie. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to get title here. And we could have done this in the, we could have done over in our template file. We could have did movie.title instead of passing it in. But, I like to, live on the edge a little bit. So we're specifying var title here, which is just the movie, the title of that movie. And we're passing that in so we can access title in our template file. And it's going to change for each different rendering of the template. All right, I hope I did justice to explaining that. One thing you might have noticed is that if we visit an episode number outside of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, we'll get an error because that movie title doesn't exist. So, for example, let's test that out. We'll do, run it again. I don't know why I just restarted it, but let's do episode 0. We're going to get cannot read title of undefined. The reason is we're doing movie.title. The thing is, title doesn't exist on undefined because movie is undefined at index. This will be -1 because we're subtracting 1. And if we do 8, cannot read property title of undefined. So we need a way to write a conditional to only render the movie single template if the episode number is between 1 and 6. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the movie single logic. If we open up Sublime down here, so we go into index, and I wrap this logic in an if-else statement. So if the episode number is between 1 and 6, we will render the movie single template. And if it's not, we're going to render kind of the 404 not found template, which we'll do later. But I just want to put that out there. Okay, so I'm going to keep episode number and movies outside. So you may be wondering why I'm not going to include that in the if block. And that's because I'm going to be rendering the header EJS partial in the not found template, which will be part of the else block. So I still want that to be accessible in the else. So I don't want to wrap everything here in the if, because I'm going to actually use the movies variable in the else block. So, okay, let's get ahead and code this here. So if episode number is greater than or equal to 1 and episode number is less than or equal to 6, we're going to run this code in here. So we're going to render, we're going to define movie, we're going to define title, and we're going to render it. So we're going to tab that in. All right, and then we're going to do else. And for now, let's just do response.send. This is not the page. I cannot type. This is not the page you are looking for. Now the semicolon. So now if we visit a page with an episode number, if we refresh this, with an episode number of 8, we will see this is not the page you are looking for because, oh gosh, I'm getting motion sickness from swinging back and forth here. Because episode number, it does not meet this if conditional here, so we're running the else block, which is sending this is not the page you are looking for. This, in the future, near the end of this part, is where we're going to render like a 404 template, so we don't have to just send text to the screen because that looks kind of ugly. And yeah, just to show you again, if we go to 0, we're going to get the same thing. But if we visit 1, we're going to get our page. If we visit 2, we're going to get the page for 2. 4, we're going to get the page for 4. Awesome. All right, so the current state of the movie single pages is extremely underwhelming. We have a nice matte color background, and we have the title. And we also have a navigation, which isn't hooked up just yet. We'll do that later. So right now, let's actually just start outputting information for each movie. So one thing we need to do quickly before we start outputting this information is actually pass this movie variable right here that gets the movie with respect to the episode number. And we need to pass that in because we actually haven't done that yet. And we're going to be using that a lot. So we're going to pass in movie. Now, like I said, for title here, I'm sort of getting the title right here using dot notation. Like I said, I could have not done this and just did movie.title in this page right here, could have movie.title, but it's always good to, spice up things here. I like to live on the edge when I code. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to start with the poster. So let's get rid of home. Let's get rid of the things we don't need right now. All right, let's just keep the route file and the movie single template file. So under here, we're going to create a div with a class of content padding. Oh, I need a hyphen in there. Content padding and clearfix. Okay, and then inside this, I'm going to write another div, which is going to wrap the poster image because we're going to be floating this to the left and then all the info to the right. So we're going to do class of poster wrapper. And inside this div, we're going to have the image tag. And the source, remember, we set our public directory in our app.js file. We set our static directory as public, so we don't have to specify public every time. So we go back in here. Image source is going to be /images/ and then we're going to get the movie poster. Now remember, we have access to movie, which is with respect to the episode number in the URL. So we're going to do movie.poster. This is going to get that movies JSON. It's going to get this value right here. If we're on episode 2, for example, it's going to get that and place that in. It's going to get that from the public images directory. And then we're going to add a class of image responsive. And if we restart the server, run it and refresh, we're on episode 4 right here. So we're going to get the poster for episode 4. And we go to 2. Nope, we don't have that hooked up just yet. Go to episode 2. We'll see the one for Attack of the Clones. Awesome. And if we inspect, we'll see that the name matches. So we have div with a class of poster wrapper and an image with a source of /images/Star Wars episode 2 poster.png. Cool beans. And again, if we visit page 7, since it doesn't exist, technically it does, and it was awesome, but not considering like that, we'll see the response being sent to the page, and we're not rendering a poster, we're not getting an error. Awesome. And just to run over these styles really quick, let's open this up. Go into public style sheet styles, and this is homepage, posters, footer, movie single. Okay, so down here, I just broke it up into 2 different sections, one for home and one for movie single. So here image is very similar, but we want poster right here. Poster wrapper, which is what we're wrapping this in right here. We're floating that left because the other stuff, description wrapper, is being floated right. Width 30%, margin top. And yeah, that's really it. It's pretty basic. Image responsive is a great class in Bootstrap, so it does a lot of the resizing for us. All right, so now let's display the description. So we're going to create some space here, and we're going to create a class of description wrapper. And inside here, we're going to do another div with a class of description. And again, inside here, we're going to do an H2. This is going to have a class of movie header, which is going to get some custom styles. It's going to create a little border and convert it to all caps. And this is going to be description. Then we're going to have the paragraph, which is going to be the movie description. So to output that, again, with respect to the current movie dot description. All right, and we will minimize this. Head on over. Actually, we need to restart the server. Node app.js, refresh. Again, page 7 doesn't exist. Refresh 3, and voila, we get the description. Check out 1. Evo Trade Federation, they suck. 2, 10 years after Phantom Menace, blah, blah, blah. All right, cool. The next thing we're going to display is the main characters, which is going to be a little bit different, but it's still not going to be too bad. Just similar loop to how we loop through the movies at the very beginning of the first part. Just going to be similar to that. And just like we did for the title, let's change it up a bit again. And let's just define it in here and pass it in. So var main characters is going to get movie.main characters. Remember, this is an array. And let's just pass it in. So do main characters gets main characters. Remember, in the object literal, the name on the left is the variable accessible in our template file. The value on the right is what it represents. So we'll go back to the movie single template file, and inside description wrapper, we're going to create some white space. We're going to create a div, the class main characters. And inside that div, we're going to have a header 2, again with a class of movie header. And this is going to say main characters. And inside here, we're going to have an unordered list, which is going to then have a loop inside of that. And I'm going to create the ending one right away. I don't know why, I just like to do that. Basic for loop, var I gets 0 when I is less than main characters. Remember, we have that accessible. That's actually an underscore. Main characters dot length. We're going to increment I each time through. Oops. There we go. And what we're going to do is for each list item through the loop, we're going to output that indexes main characters / I. So this is going to loop through the main characters array, which we created, remember, in our route file right here. And it represents each movie's array of main characters, which right here, main characters, an array, fun stuff. And it's going to output the information at that index. So if we minimize, run our app again, and we refresh, we're going to see main characters, and we're going to see all the main characters for that movie. Check out 5. We have a bunch of different characters here. 6. Awesome. And remember, if we visit like 9 or something, we're going to send, this is not the page you were looking for. Again, I really hope this kind of shows the power and how easy it is to use Express.js. I'm like really liking this framework, so I hope you guys are really finding out some of the power of it. And just go over the styles really quick. If we look at main characters, we're displaying them inline, giving them some spacing, and specifying the font size and letter spacing. Nothing too much there. Next thing we're going to do is a little bit different, but what we're going to do is we're going to use sort of inline style to display a background image corresponding to the current movie's hero image value. So what I'm going to do is on hero image single, I'm going to create a style attribute that sets the background image property to the movie's hero image. So style gets background image, and it's going to be a URL. And remember, our static assets already specified that they're in the public directory. And I hate when it does that. Images / and now remember we have movie accessible. So we're just going to do movie.hero image. And we're going to, that's actually it. So we're going to save that. Let's refresh again and open up Sublime again. We'll go over, we'll refresh, and now we're going to see the cool Star Wars pictures we got. So I keep forgetting I didn't wire that up. We're going to do that very soon, I promise. Got one of Anakin, 5, 6. As you can see, this corresponds to the hero image property in the movie's JSON file. And the reason I'm creating a different class like hero image single is just because if we look down, where is it? Hero image single. It's because I'm not specifying a background property for the class. Instead of like overwriting it in CSS, just give it another class. May not be the most efficient, but it works. Okay, so let's actually start focusing on wiring up our application so when we click on something, it takes us places so we don't have to keep using the URL. So let's start with these posters actually. So I promise the tediousness of using this application will stop. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go back in here, and in our home, views home template, for each poster inside, we're going to wrap the image and the poster image overlay in an anchor tag. So we're going to write anchor. Now the href, this is where the magic happens. We're going to do Star Wars episode because that's common for each of them. If we look at the app.js, it's Star Wars episode, then it's the episode number. And remember, we have movies accessible here. So Star Wars episode / movies. And on the movies object, we have episode number 1, 2, and it corresponds going all the way down. So we're just going to do dot, I need to output this. Movies I dot episode number. So it's going to get the movie's episode number, which is the current one in the loop. And we'll take this anchor, paste it after here, tab these in a little bit, and we'll save. And now we can just actually, I keep giving you guys motion sickness. We'll restart the server, go back, refresh. Now when we hover over, we get that little pointer, and if we click on them, there we go. We're getting taken to the respective page. New Hope, Empire Strikes Back. Awesome. The app is finally starting to come together. So with that wired up now, all we need to focus on is this madness up here. So let's go back in and we'll open up our header partials header.ejs. Open that up. Oh, come on, Sublime. Don't do this to me now. So in our header EJS file, we have the drop-down menu, and we're doing a for loop to output the list items. So over here, these list items are and the anchors are being outputted via a for loop that has the movies variable. So what we can do is we actually don't even need to use that because we can actually just use I because it's a counter. So what we're going to do for href is do Star Wars episode. And then what we can do is now obviously we don't have an episode 0. The movies themselves are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can just do I, I'll put this here, I plus 1. So on the first time through, it'll be episode 1. Second time will be episode 2. And it's actually going to work just how we want it to. So we can minimize that, run it again, refresh, and the madness has continued, actually. Oh, no, it didn't. I'd like barely missed it. My bad. So there we go. Click on 6, we'll be taken to 6 up here. Click on 1, we'll be taken to 1. Darth Maul looking badass. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, we need to render an actual template file if we visit a page that doesn't exist. For example, 8. That's very unprofessional looking. And say we want to visit like about for some reason, we want that to also render the same template. So to review what we need to do, if you remember in the movie single route, we created, if I open up Sublime here, it's a lot more difficult when it's minimized. In the routes here, movie single, we created this conditional. And it checks if the episode number in the params is between 1 and 6. And if it is, we render the movie single template here. And if it's not, we want to render the not found template, which is what we'll call it. And we also need to render the not found template in the not found route, because this one would deal with any other route such as /about, /cheese, I don't know. So let's go ahead and create in our views, in the root of our views, create a new file called notfound.ejs. And in here, let's just copy what we have from home. And where did it go? I lose everything. There we go. And the hero image right here, we're actually going to do dash not found because it's going to set a single background image. It's not going to change depending on what it is. And we'll get rid of some of that stuff. For our title, we will output a title which we have yet to define, but we will define that here shortly. Now, before we can view this page, we need to go into the index.js for our routes, and we need to render this in the else block of the movie single route. So we're going to render, and it's going to be not found. And also, because we're including the header partial in the not found template, we need to include the movies variable in an object literal to the template so that the header can work. So we'll do a comma, and we'll pass in movies as movies. And remember, we already have access to this because we defined it outside the if statement. And also, we are rendering in the head EJS. So we're rendering header and we're rendering head, and head makes use of title. So we'll do title, and it'll be, this is not the page you are looking for. References, yay. You may notice that it can be a little confusing remembering sort of which variables you're passing into partials. So for example, say I'm going to command X this. Say you want to view the page, the not found template, and you're going to get an error, but Express again, does a really good job with their errors. So visit 8, we'll get, boom, title is not defined, and it even points to the partial. So we know that we have title and head, and we're not including it in the template. So we can get rid of that, go back in here, put title back in, and then we won't get that error. So if you want to run node app.js again, go back in here, refresh. This is not the page you were looking for. There it is. And we get the image that we're specifying for in our CSS. And yeah, everything else still works. But one thing we still need to do is if we visit /about, we're sending this message because we haven't rendered the template. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. So in the not found route, we actually don't have movies defined. So let's just define that quickly because we need to use that. And we can go down here, response.render. We want to render the not found template. And we're going to do an object literal again with movies. And our title is right here. So we can just copy this title. We want it to be the same thing. So paste that in. Don't forget the semicolon. Oops, not there. Don't do that. And now if we refresh the server and we have a gander at /about, and it works there now, and visit Star Wars episode 2, works great. Episode 9, this is not the page you're looking for. Cool. Okay, so the last thing we want to do for this application, coding wise, I guess kind of application logic wise, is creating a footer, because in the final design, there's a little footer at the bottom, and we don't have that yet. Everything else is wired up and actually working very, very well, which is awesome. So we'll go back and we'll just stop the server right now. And to do this, we're just going to create in our partials, again, we're going to create footer.ejs. And in here, we're just going to create let me get the syntax highlighting. We're going to create a footer tag, and inside the footer tag, we're going to have, a div with a class of content padding. Inside the div with the class of content padding, we'll have another div with a class of footer content. And inside here, we will have a paragraph that says copyright at copy. Oh, nope, don't want that. Ampersand copy. And you can just put your name. And then below that, we will also do a div with a class of social media icons. And inside here, we'll just do 2 anchors. They're not going to link anywhere. You could put these to a social media site if you want, but just do an I, a class. And Font Awesome actually has Star Wars related icons. Can you believe it? It was actually pretty exciting. I think I nerded out a little bit too much. So we'll do 1 Empire and then 1 FA Rebel. All right, so that's the footer. Now we just need obviously to render it in to all of our pages. So right above scripts, let's just copy scripts and paste in footer. Boom. Not found. And we need home as well, which is everything's highlighted. Paste that in. Oh, I didn't even change the last one. Oh my, been a long day. Footer. All right. So now if we refresh, get out of here, node app.js, come back, scroll down, we will see our little footer. If we hover over, we got a little transition. Empire logo changes black, Rebel logo changes red. Okay, I'm going to clean up all these tabs here. Clean up all this. All right, so now we need to focus on the process of deploying this app to Heroku so that the app can live live on the web. Before we do this, however, we need to add a few things and make a few changes to our code so that our application will actually work in a production environment. When we're developing the application, you can think of us as in a development environment, but when the app is published on the web, it's in the production environment. So the first thing we're going to do is in the very root of our folder, we're going to create a new file, and we're just going to save it and call it proc file. To put it simply, this file essentially tells the production server which file to run in order to get the application to run. In our case, this is app.js. So we're going to write the following in the proc file. We're going to do web node app.js. So it's basically just saying run node app.js in a production environment. So that's good there. And the next thing we need to do is back in app.js. Here in the app.listen, we're telling it to listen on port 3000. The reason we need to change this is because we will get a Heroku error and the app will crash if we strictly specify a port to listen to in a production environment. So we will replace this code with the new code. So we're going to do process environment port or 3000. And oops, there we go. So this will tell the application to listen on the production environment's port in production, and it will listen to port 3000 in development. So for example, we save this and we run the app again. We're not going to get a console.log, so we got rid of that. But if we refresh this page, it's still running on localhost 3000, as you can tell. So the last thing we need to do before we publish the app to Heroku is to create a Git repository for the application. When using Heroku, the easiest way to publish the app is to create a Git repository for the application and then push it to Heroku. To create a Git repository, make sure you first have Git installed, and then I'm just follow these steps I'm going to go through. I'm going to be using GitHub for this, so you guys can see the repository at the end of the app. So I'm going to run git init, which is going to initialize a Git repository for us. And then I'm going to run git status, and this is going to list all the files that are untracked, which will be, well, all of them, because we did not create a Git repository at the beginning. In a typical development process with larger applications, you should be using git commit to commit your changes regularly. But for the sake of convenience, I'm just going to do this all at the end right now, but it'll still work, obviously. So I'm going to do git add dot, which is going to add all those untracked files. And then I'm going to commit with the message final commit for production. And there we go. So now I'm going to visit GitHub. Go over here, github.com. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a GitHub repository. So I could do new repository. And I'm just going to call this one Star Wars movie app. And description, a basic movie app for the Star Wars movies. Cool. And actually, one thing I need to do, I'll add this, create the repository. And since I have an existing repository, which I just created, I can just copy these two lines, go over, add that, and push origin master. Voila, it's going to ask you for your username and password. At least it should. It is slow. Very, very slow. There we go. Okay, so once you enter your account information, it might take a little bit of time, but it'll push all that fun stuff up. And if we refresh, we will see the GitHub repository. So the very last step is to actually publish this app to Heroku. And Heroku is basically a platform for deploying web apps. Because Node.js applications cannot run on a traditional web server, you have to find another solution for deploying these types of applications. Thankfully, Heroku is very easy to set up, and it is free for almost all basic applications, and it's 100% free for this application that we just created. All you need to do to start using Heroku is to sign up for an account and install the Heroku toolbelt, which you can access at Heroku. I guess I don't have it on there. Heroku toolbelt. And just visit this site, pick your operating system, and then just follow the instructions. It's very easy, it's very quick, very efficient. That's why I love Heroku. So once the toolbelt is installed, since we already have a Git repository, we just need to create a Heroku app and then push the repository to the master branch of the Heroku app. So right now I'm actually visiting Heroku.com. So once you sign up for an account and you have, you create a couple applications and stuff, these are obviously very, very random names, but I think they're always, really funny. I don't know. So we're going to run Heroku. Once you have the toolbelt installed, Heroku create, make sure you're in the directory of your application. And this might take a little bit. So we can just wait. All right. So it created it at Calm Peak 1735. Oh, what a name. So then we do git push. Heroku master, and this is going to push the Git repository we have in this folder and push it to this Heroku app. So I'm going to run that. This usually takes a little while, so I'm just going to lean back and wait. Just rolling. I forgot I had coffee up here, so now it's cold, and now I'm depressed. Okay, so once we have that, what we can do is we can run Heroku open, and this will open the web app in the browser, and we should, cross our fingers, everything should be good. And we're loading. There it is. Star Wars movies. Our title's good. Got the title here. We got our 6 posters. We got our footer. Click on them. Links work. Images come in. Description, main characters. Oh, this is looking great. These links are working great. Again, the posters change depending on the episode. Amazing. You guys have just created maybe your first Express app. I don't know, but it's live on the web. And great job. Alrighty, so that concludes this little tutorial series on building a basic Express.js application from scratch. We've created a Star Wars app that presents the posters for each of the movies on the homepage, then allows a visitor to visit an individual page for each of the movies by clicking on the poster, or you can click on a link up here in the drop-down navigation. I hope you found that Express.js is actually a very powerful framework, and it's really easy to use, and I found it to be extremely friendly to beginners. I found it to be a lot easier to pick up than Ruby on Rails was. Maybe it's because it's using the JavaScript language, which is a language I already have a good grip on. I was surprised at how easy you could actually create routes and pass information from a JSON file, and I just think the ease of use that it could create dynamic content makes it really powerful. I know that this app is not hooked up to an actual database yet, but I hope that the movies.json file gave you a good feel for working with JSON files. I definitely plan on continuing this series and building onto this application with more and more functionality. In the future, I plan on adding a database to this application, adding users where a visitor can sign up for an account, then log in and log out. I also want to add comments to the app where users can leave a comment on each of the movies and perhaps even a 5-star rating. I also want to add a little carousel feature to the movie single template so that a user can click on previous over here or next over here and be taken to the respective movie. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching this tutorial, and I will see you all in the next one.